Welcome to Rooted and Rising Healing. I'm your host, Hallie Roderick, and this space is for women rebuilding after betrayal. Here we make sense of what happened, find truth again, and reconnect with who you really are beyond the pain. Whether you're staying, leaving, or still in the middle, your story matters. Together, we'll explore truth, clarity, and the quiet courage it takes to rise from the wreckage of what was into the wholeness of who you're becoming. You're safe to be here. In the messy middle, in the rebuilding, and in the rising. Let's begin. If you're a mom or a daughter and you've ever felt that quiet desire for deeper connection between you, but you don't want it to feel forced or uncomfortable, I want to invite you into something really special. It's called Becoming Together, a mother-daughter retreat in Sedona, Arizona, happening September 8th through the 12th, that I'm hosting alongside my own daughters. This experience is really close to our hearts because we understand that every mother-daughter relationship is unique and it's not always perfect. And this isn't about fixing anything. It's about creating a space to soften, to breathe, and to connect in your own way. Over a few beautiful days in Sedona, we'll guide you through experiences like breathwork, sound baths, mindful movement, even a vortex hike, and of course, nourishing meals. Each of us bringing our own gifts to support you, while also honoring your individual journey. There's no pressure to open up before you're ready, no expectation to be anything other than yourself, just a safe, supportive space to reconnect with yourself, with each other, and with something greater. If you feel even the smallest pull, you can find more information in the show notes, because you don't have to have a perfect relationship to begin becoming together. Welcome to today's episode of the Rooted and Rising podcast. When was the last time that you did something with your hands just to feel calm? Not to produce anything, not to be good at anything, but just to be present. For a lot of us, healing from betrayal, that instinct might have even gotten buried under our hypervigilance or our survival mode. And so I'm excited because my guest today, Beth Woessner, is a watercolor artist and trauma-informed coach who believes creativity can actually be a doorway back to yourself. So welcome, Beth. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be able to share about this.
Well, let me tell our audience a little bit more about you, and then you can fill any blanks that I might have missed. But Beth is a professional watercolor artist, an educator, a creative entrepreneur with over 20 years experience. Beth is also a fellow certified partner coach through the APSATS organization. She blends her art background with trauma-informed coaching to help people reconnect with themselves through creativity. And she does this through one-on-one coaching, custom watercolor commissions, some private art instruction, group workshops, and also an art-based resilience group that we're going to talk about here in a bit for people healing from betrayal. Is that anything there that I missed that our audience should know?
Nope, I don't think so. Nope.
Okay. Well, I'm curious about your personal connection to art and healing. Like, where does this come from? I imagine my daughter-in-law is a really gifted artist, and she kind of was just born with this, came loving art. And as she's gotten more training and practiced more, she's become really skilled. But where does your connection to art and healing come from?
Yeah. Well, my connection to art is similar to your daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law, yeah.
Daughter-in-law. Similar to that, I feel like I was born with an interest in art, but I truly believe art is a skill that can be learned by anybody. And what I say about that is that, like, I just don't get tired of wanting to learn more and doing more of it, where other people, their interest might waver and they have other interests. So that's where I feel like it's different. But where the art and healing have intersected a couple places, I realized in teaching my classes that are not set up to be healing classes, just art experiences where people are learning how to paint a pumpkin or learning how to paint whatever the subject is that I'm offering. And it just seems to change people. They leave different than when they came, more relaxed, more engaged. And so I think art in and of itself is already healing, but I really became passionate about it in a more, I guess, intentional way when my own healing, I was experiencing a flare from lupus, and it was really, really painful. And I was adding things to my self-care to help myself. Felt like it was my body saying, stop and take care of me. However, I still had classes I was teaching, and I didn't want to take those off the books. And so I was going to do the, pull myself up by my bootstraps and show up and pretend I didn't have pain to be able to do this. And what I noticed not long into the session is my pain disappeared, and my pain had been constant. And so that was very surprising to me. And also it lasted the entire time of the workshop. And then my pain came back later. And it had not had a break from pain for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so the science tells us about art being beneficial for us, mind, body, spirit. But I truly experienced this flow that my body was able to, I don't even know exactly what I was doing, but it was relaxing. And I was in a safe space where I felt comfortable. And all of those things combined, I think, is what calmed my nervous system. And that was part of what the journey was of my self-care, was looking for spaces where my nervous system could be calm, like really paying attention to when I was feeling guarded and tense, and then times when I just felt my shoulders relax and I felt comfortable with myself. And those were with certain people, or it was doing certain activities. And because I was really trying to pay attention to that and name it when it was happening, I also think that helped me tune into what was happening in my body with this different experience. Then, because of my comfort level with art and my journey as a betrayal trauma coach and my own healing, I was like, this just makes sense for me to just offer what I know and what has been helpful to me. I think it is a way to calm our nervous systems. There's all kinds of ways. Mm-hmm. And I think the more we can add that into our healing, the better.
Yeah. I think of healing as almost like we got to have a whole toolbox of things. And sometimes the art might be the thing that works, or the physical exercise, or the deep breathing, or whatever. We need to have a toolbox of things that we can use at different times. But I love that story. What a powerful example of how, first of all, the amazing aspect that our bodies have of healing. And when we're in, you use the word flow, but when we're really in that flow, or we're tuned into ourself, or our inner knowing's the word that's coming up for me. Mm-hmm. It's like, I believe our body has everything it needs to heal. Mm-hmm. And the more we can tap into that healing energy in whatever way it is, mm-hmm. the more we put our body in an ideal space to do the healing that it needs to do. So that's a pretty powerful example, because I know I don't have lupus, but I have friends that have experienced that kind of chronic illness. And so I've witnessed the pain of that, and to even have a break from it for a little bit, that's amazing to have a resource.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of women in this journey have the autoimmune issues that have come up. Mm-hmm. And I fully believe, and they don't know everything about autoimmune yet, but it for sure is triggered by stress. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so talk to me about how art is more of a bottom-up approach to nervous system regulation. So for people that don't know what top-down or bottom-up is, can you explain that to us? Mm-hmm. And why this kind of art, we're not really calling it art therapy.
Right.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, I just like to say experiential art. And what I am doing with it, with others in this healing environment, is more about, just like you were saying, being attuned to the moment you're in, being present, which is mindfulness, which is like knowing if you're washing the dishes, what the soap smells like, how it feels on your hands, the sound, just being really present and not in our head elsewhere, or just in our bodies of what we're experiencing. And so it is a bottom-up experience where we're very attuned to listening to our bodies and the tactile presence of doing art, touching art materials, and listening and trusting yourself in the journey of this process art only, which is it doesn't have to look like a tree, doesn't have to look like anything. That's not even the prompt. But it would be like whatever color is speaking to you, grab that color. And just over and over, those kinds of prompts and following that lead of whatever you're telling yourself is like listening to your body and not what other people are telling you what to do. It just gets you out of your head and just listening to yourself.
Yeah, out of your head into your body is one of my favorite phrases to think about. When I notice myself up in my head, I'm like, okay, hold on a minute. Let me get out of my head and into my body and really drop down into that, into my five senses is how I think about it. I have to like break it down into my five senses.
Yeah. And the top down is part of our healing process too. That's really important. That's where we can be in talk therapy or in coaching sessions, in reading and listening to podcasts. And like you said, the toolbox, we need all of it.
Yeah.
Breathing and movement. And it is a wide world of options for our healing out there.
I had a guest on my show a few weeks ago, and she was talking about mindfulness and being in our body in a different way. And she used the word embodiment. And that really kind of shifted the way I think about mindfulness. Because if you think about even just the definition of mindfulness, it's like in our mind. That's what I thought about when you were describing that being present is, oh, it's like an embodiment practice. We're practicing being in our body by paying attention to the five senses. What does the pen or the marker or the paintbrush feel like in my hand? What are the colors? And so it really can be like an embodiment.
Yeah.
Practice.
And I like to say too, the other powerful opportunity about these kinds of embodiment opportunities for us to practice that is many of us have become disconnected with our bodies because we learned early on, like if you fell down and your parents or caregiver was like, you're okay, you're okay. And over those kinds of messages, when we're like hurting, we deny it and go, oh, I guess I am okay. So we start to distrust what our bodies are telling us of hurt, and our emotions in our brain are just as painful, or the painful emotions, as if we fell and skinned our knee. And so after years and years of not being connected or trusting our bodies, this is just another muscle to practice that attunement of being, listening to those signals. And those signals are important because our emotions are going to first happen in our bodies before they travel to our head and we have a comprehension of it. And as far as building safety and trust with ourselves, we need to be able to listen to those signals and trust it and not talk ourselves out of it. So this is just, like I said, a path of attuning to that, to your body, paying attention to choice, things not being wrong, like red is not wrong or whatever.
I had actually written that down when you were talking about that before, like what color do I want? It's a practice of self-trust too, just going, there's no right or wrong, just whatever feels right to me.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that I would never say I'm an artist. I have other creative gifts, but it's not really in this area of like art. I enjoy it when it's presented to me, but I don't go out of my way to find it sometimes. But what I will tell you is that I've had several experiences. My daughter-in-law will do classes too. And so I've taken some classes from her. And then I don't know if you know Natalie Bigler on our team yet. She's also does a lot of creative art. I've done some art projects with her before. And I walk away. I sit down sometimes and like, this isn't going to be good because I'm not an artist. And then I have one of my pieces of art that I did with Natalie actually sitting next to my bed because I was like, oh my gosh, that's actually beautiful. And there's nothing fancy about it. But the whole experience of the way she walked me through it and how we started out, and it was kind of ugly at first and it was abstract, and then we turned it into something just beautiful at the end. I was amazed at how I went from being resistant to walking away going, I actually really love that. I loved the process and I love the finished product of it too. So I guess I'm leading up to that. My reason for sharing that is I'm probably not the only one in my audience who says, I'm not an artist. This doesn't work for me. So what would you say to people like that who don't maybe have the natural draw to art like you do?
Yeah, well, a couple things. I would say really think about where that message is coming from. Often we are told, again, when we're younger, like maybe a teacher said, oh, that's not a tree or something, and it sticks with us like, oh, I can't do art. So really think about where that message is coming from, while also thinking about this opportunity for process art. It's not supposed to look like a tree anyway. And so it doesn't take a skill, or it doesn't take an artist, although I think we all are artists, and creativity looks in all kinds of different ways. And I think we're all creative. And I think there's also such a range of art, if we're going to even just go to the skill part of it, of what brings people pleasure, of what they like to look at. There's even studies just looking at art calms the nervous system. I have a little sign that says that at my booth because I see people walk through and I can see their stance kind of change when they're looking at something that resonates with them. So anyway, back to your question about if someone thinks they're not an artist. So one, think about where that message is coming from. And another is it may not be for you, may not be for everybody, because your place where you find flow or you find rest in your body might be a handful of different things. But I also say give it a try and see first before you decide that this is not for you. As a kids, we all are artists. Like, who doesn't love a new box of crayons? And just kind of tapping into that beginner type confidence that a kindergartner has with crayons of like, yeah, I can create.
Yeah. I have some of those adult coloring books with markers, and I will do that when I'm like watching a movie or something, just to kind of like, I don't know. I think I probably a little bit of ADHD, and it helps me focus on what's going on in front of me. But when it comes to, I'm thinking freehand, I don't know what you actually call it in art terms, but like more free flowing art rather than a picture on the thing that I'm choosing the colors that goes into. I think there's a lot of freedom when I have done art projects that other people are like guiding me and giving me permission to do with that free flow art form. And so are there any suggestions if somebody wants to start doing some of this practice by themselves? Of course, there's guided options, and we're going to talk about the option they have to come and join you in your workshop or your group that you're offering here in a minute. But what if I want to do or practice, try some of this? What's some ways that we can do that and start?
I think getting some sort of mixed media journal, or really just any paper, but often we have something in our house that are art supplies, colored pencils or crayons or magazines that we're done reading, and glue. And I say with this journal, just kind of go through it with your things around you and whatever feels like you want to do. Cut up and paste it, put crayon around it, put marker, just mark making, just having that physical movement of making marks. What do these two colors look like if I put one on top of the other? Or what if I do a pattern of circles and they're all different shapes? That's what creativity is, really, is that question of what would it look like if I do this? Yeah. That's how we problem solve. What would happen if I mixed vinegar with whatever? That's creativity. What would it look like if I layered these different images of faces that I'm cutting out from the magazine? And again, just knowing the physical part of cutting, pasting, gluing, coloring, markering is all really good for us to just, like you said, tune into embodiment. And a journal can be just for yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody, and you can get through it sort of quickly. It's just smaller pages, and so you can feel like you're do a little bit every day.
So tell me, as far as like real life experiences, either personally or with clients that you've worked, how can someone benefit from incorporating experiential art? Like if I were to want to incorporate that into some of my self-care practices, what are some of the benefits that I might gain from that?
Yeah, you're going to gain a chance for your body to have some rest and digest by being in that calm state of that flow or creativity, attunement, embodiment. My nutritionist that I was working with for a while, we didn't talk about what I needed to eat. We talked about finding those spaces and places where I'm at rest and digest to get my body out of fight, flight, and freeze, which the autoimmune is often connected to that. So the more spaces, like I said earlier, where you can give your body even just a moment of rest. And it's not rest like lay down rest, although that can be something as well. But it's just, again, when your shoulders relax, when you're not hyper vigilant, you're not overthinking things, you're in the moment and you're creating. So it's just a form of self-care that can be really good for our bodies.
I think too, I have to be very intentional about creating space for me to create opportunities for rest and digest to happen in my own life. Mm-hmm. And so I think about art as that it would require me to be very intentional about grabbing the art supplies and giving mm-hmm. myself that space and that time. And so I think that's a big piece that a lot of times we discredit or we don't give enough credit to in recovery, because of course, when we're in a level of pain, we want to be out of it as quick as we can. So we tend to function on overdrive. And I think the healing actually happens the most when we slow down.
Yeah.
Move into rest and digest. So yeah. I love just one more option of ways we can be intentional about creating those opportunities.
Yeah. And you can create a little basket of kind of gathered supplies. So it'll be easier to grab and pull out and put at the table and put away. I know for me too, we struggle to not be productive, like to be doing something that is productive. And so it feels like a waste of time. Like, oh, I've got a million other things to do. This is my struggle too. I think it's a human struggle. But those things are always going to be a giant list of things to do. And if we don't take care of ourselves, eventually our bodies are going to tell us to take care of ourselves. And the saying of rest is productive.
Yeah.
But it is hard to convince ourselves to even just sit down and read a pleasurable novel in the middle of the day or in the evening, or just, I know it's our society, our culture, produce. It is a struggle. It's a struggle to talk yourself into it, but that's a great thing to practice that voice and learn how to do and schedule it in if you have to.
Yeah. I think of that concept of reparenting ourselves around belief systems or definitions that don't actually serve us well, because that's one thing I've been working on a lot, is to kind of reparent myself around the idea of what is productive and being intentional about the embodiment practices, and slowing down is productive. It's just productive in a different way than what maybe my parents said it was, or society might say it is. And so that whole idea of reparenting ourselves, does that actually work for me? No, I actually am going to give myself permission to slow down and say, you know what? This is actually productive in a different way.
Right.
So tell me about your group that you're running through Choose.
Yeah, there's two of them. The one that's starting first is Tender Resilience Healing Circle. Okay. And that is going to be once a month on the second Friday of every month for an hour. And it's an art experiential group for women walking through betrayal trauma. So a way to feel with like-minded stories. There won't be a lot of talking in this group. It's going to be just sort of following the prompts and creating on your own. And at the end, I will have prompts of questions, and whatever we have time for, we'll fit in a few answers to that. But the questions will be connected to tuning into how they were connecting with what they did. So it's just reinforcing that process of being present.
And there's no cost for that, right?
No cost. It's free. I forgot to say that. That's a big piece of it. It's free. And it's simple supplies. Like there's a list that goes out there, but really, like I mentioned, a lot of them here is just whatever you have: markers, crayons, both colored pencils, paper. It could just be copy paper, scissors and tape and glue. And that's about it. So easy supplies. You don't need to have any kinds of skills. Hopefully we are not thinking about that at all with this art experiential group. That's not the goal.
Okay. I love it. We're always investing so much in our recovery work. And I love that there's no cost. What a gift to people to be able to come and experience that with other women and with your expertise guiding it. So thank you for offering that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is a lot. So it's nice to have a little break in the finances.
Yeah. So I'll make sure that I put the links to that in the show notes, but you mentioned there's another group coming?
Yes. So starting in October, there's a 6-week group, Tender Resilience, kind of the same name. And See, tender resilience, kind of the oxymoron. I think we tend to think of resilient as tough and strong, when really resilience is about being tender and compassionate and kind to ourselves. And so there's a book called Resilient by Rick Hansen that I love. And I've taken it and created 6 lessons out of it. And it's builds as you go through these lessons. It'll be a 2-hour experience with other women. And it'll also incorporate an art exercise that's going to coincide with that day's theme, all under the big theme of resilience. And so that one, there'll be a little bit more talking because we'll have 2 hours, and it'll be a closed group where the drop-in group is open, so anybody can drop in. And the 6-week, whoever starts, they stay, and no one else slips in during those 6 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. I'll make sure that we get some links into the show notes for that. So if my audience is feeling called to want to get to know you more, to work with you, tell me kind of what your ideal client is. And obviously we know art is one of your niche areas, but when you think about the type of clients that you feel you really connect with, who are those ladies?
I think it's any woman that's walking this path. I have a deep respect and connection to that journey personally. And so it matters to me a lot to be walking beside someone who is going through this journey. So really any woman. I will say I am 56 years old. So I think all of us tend to connect maybe with people similar in age because the life experience that we're all living is similar. So that can be a helpful connection, though this process applies to any age. And the coaching I do, it's an option if there's going to be an art experience included. So it's really not about that. It's more traditional betrayal trauma coaching.
Good. I'm glad we clarified that, because you have just like traditional betrayal trauma coaching. But I'm also noticing on our website that you have individual art sessions, like you would do private art integration sessions as well.
Yeah, it would be very customized, and I would need to meet with someone for a bit to know where we're headed with that. But if they're wanting to include it, I am open to weaving that in however we can with the sessions. That would just be, again, customized and whatever the person is preferring. And it can be a combination. It's also referring to, like, in my own space here in Arkansas, I do private lessons. These would be not directly connected to healing, but art skilled classes and workshops. So yeah, there's a variety there.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Okay. So I'm going to put the links to the show notes. How else can our audience connect with you? Do you have some social media or website?
Yeah.
Into?
Yeah, I'm at Beth Woessner Art, and that is the name on my Facebook, my Instagram. My website's just Beth Woessner. My website talks about my coaching and talks about my art, and same thing with Facebook and Instagram. I have a poetry book I'm reading through on my Instagram that has been fun to weave in as just something different than just, here, look at my art. And it's also a way to kind of get to know me and what I value.
I love it. Well, what a gift you are to this community. I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us. So if somebody's listening to this, what would be one thing you hope that they walk away from with this episode?
I would hope that they walk away with some curiosity about giving this art experiential process a try, whether it's on their own or in some sort of guided class or with whatever the Choose Recoveries offering that I'm hosting. I just hope that someone would walk away with, like, I wonder what that would be like.
Yeah. Because isn't that where everything starts? Like new understandings and new experiences start with just a little bit of curiosity.
Yeah.
I hope that too. Beth, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your gifts and your energy. I love it. And for those of you that are listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody else who you think might benefit from it. I would love it if you'd leave me a comment or rate my show so we can help grow the audience and reach other women who are in need of this type of support. So thank you for being here, and I hope you'll join me again next week. Thank you for being here with me inside Rooted and Rising Healing. Remember, healing isn't a destination, it's a returning to your truth, to your voice, to the woman you were always meant to be. You have the power to rise at your own pace, in your own way. And when it feels hard, just come back to your breath and remind yourself, still I rise. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love if you shared it with another sister on the journey. And until next time, stay rooted, stay rising. You've got this.